what is primarily and distinctly true for them. And I believe that all will come to the proper conclusions for their life journey based on that. Um, the departure, however, is not easy. To leave our heritage, and it goes back to biblical stories of Abraham being called out of his land into a new land that God would show him, and Moses being challenged to lead the Exodus to out of slavery to the promised land. And if you're familiar with the Bible and the stories, it's always a matter of, this isn't what I want, this isn't what we wanted, what's going on, where are the promises being fulfilled? This is not a good thing, because life on earth is a transitional, painful experience, a difficult experience. And that, I'm going to turn 50 this summer, and if there's one thing that like is so clear and vivid about life, it's difficult. Sometimes it's a straight up horror story, and that is just the way it is. Sometimes it's just a straight up nightmare. I don't feel like my life has been that much of a nightmare, but I've witnessed the nightmare of others and the suffering of others who have lost children and just gone through some real horrendous things, horrendous abuse, and all those things, which brings me to one of the primary teachings of what I believe today in non-duality, and that is that life, as we experience it, as I encounter it, is primarily illusion. Well, in non-duality terms, it's all illusion. Everything that we see, feel, and touch and identify with in our stories is superficial and non-existent in absolute truth terms. Now that's a conclusion and a belief system that obviously the first time you hear it, it kind of puts a knot in your gut, and resistance rises up. What do you mean this isn't real? This is my pain, this is my joy, this is my story, this is so many excellent things and horrible things that make the separate version of me so obviously real. How could you dare ever say this wasn't real? And that's what happens, is that the individual sense of self, the ego, rises up, and that now you know what you're dealing with. That's what happened for me, is that when I tried to engage in stillness, emptiness, the void, the spirit, God, ultimate truth, the little me, the ego, the personality, the sufferer inside me rose up. Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body, and I think that's a great, just that it's that resistant part that is in resistance to what is, and is the source of all of my suffering. So I would just challenge everyone to begin looking at their spirituality, and looking at what they really believe, what they truly encounter in their life and in their journey, and give it the test of truth. And I suppose that's where the concept of sacrifice has entered into spirituality. Sacrifice has been there from the time we came out of the caves. There was that need to kill a goat and pour its blood out on the land and appease the gods, and then it became to appease the God, and then if you follow the traditions through, eventually we come to believe that Jesus appeased God as Father. The idea of sacrifice is always there, and it's definitely a part of our dualistic life. That if I want the gallon of milk, I have to sacrifice $3. I have to pay the $3. So it's like a trade-off, which once again ultimately doesn't exist, but we perceive that it does. We perceive that we have to give up this for that. In truth, when we make the better choice, it's not really a sacrifice. It's just choosing the better path, choosing again. And one of the powerful vehicles for my awakening is A Course in Miracles. Once again, it uses the Christian language to express the non-dualistic truths of Eastern tradition. That all is one, that all is God. Everything that is being, there's not anything that you can imagine or not imagine, think of or not think of, or anything in between that is not God. Now, obviously, that creates a lot of problems when we start looking around the earth. The first thing I do is start looking at the garbage can, or the toilet, or the child molester, or the wars, and say, this is God? All is God. Everything that we encounter is of God. How could anything not be God? And then we start to understand some of the mythology that duality has created, the battle between light and dark. And I have to say that from my story and my perception, it definitely seems as though I've been in a battle of light and dark. But a lot of the darkness in my life has introduced me to the light, so it's hard to make that differential. It's hard to have any regrets. In 12-step programs in AA, they talk about not regretting the past, wishing to shut the door on it, not allowing it to be evidence of progress made or the lack of progress. But once again, it boils down to personal truth. I wanted to talk more about my departure from religion, and I think I have a bit. But I continue to depart, and that is the thing about truth, is that although I have a version of the truth that I'm trying to convey, that too is vague and empty and will change. Now, the human part of me, the ego, it just absolutely throws its hands up. Well, if it changes, well, what's the point? This is all pointless. Exactly. And, I think one of the biggest benefits of non-dual spirituality for me has been to see the meaninglessness behind so much of what we give meaning. And even the Bible, if you look at the Old Testament, talked about the meaninglessness, vanity, the wind chasing itself. So even the biblical tradition has, these concepts in it. They're overshadowed by purpose and point and theological conclusions of serving God, which is absolutely true. But once again, give it the test of your truth. That for me spiritually has been ultimately the highest litmus test, the internal barometer. We all have that. We have that sense of, I'm encountering this person and something just doesn't set right. And it works. There usually is an issue. I work in mental health, and, the litmus test for anyone with a personality disorder, that's something beyond addiction or mental illness and more grafted into the person's overall personality, there's just a sense, a feeling in your gut that you get often with people. And we've had it before. Many people have. They used to call it women's intuition, where a person you just get the feeling about something, and often it is a negative feeling, maybe about a person that isn't safe for us, that isn't right for us. And that's a human experience at the spiritual level. Test and see what is good. Test and see what is God. And I am convinced you will not be disappointed. Till next time.